Vegas and 9 p.m. here in New York City. So everybody, just wanted to welcome everybody. Welcome back if you were here last night, and welcome to those who weren't here last night. We have a great list of speakers here for us tonight. And tonight we're talking a little bit about the less technologically advanced things in our hacker community's lives. We have a whole lot of different topics that our speakers are going to talk to us about. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague here, Noobs, to introduce our first speaker.
Hello. Welcome all my degenerates back again. Hacking isn't just, computers. Hacking is a way of life. And our first speaker, you heard a great story from him yesterday. I give you Pyro.
Oh, we're starting off with me. That's awesome. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Oh my God, it works. That's amazing. Perfect. Well, then, how long do I have to tell?
Till you're done. 15 minutes-ish.
I'm done 15 minutes. Let me share my screen. That'll work. We'll see if it works.
Yep.
Oh, God.
At 60, it will stop screen sharing, though.
Right. Can you guys see my screen? Is it visible?
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to talk about off-grid hackers and give you guys a little bit of information about something that has been kind of the shift and change in my life. For those of you who know me, I've been doing Defcon 20-something plus years now. I retired last year and somehow I'm still gooning this year. I think it means that I have to retire for a fifth time. But I've lived in New York City. I've lived in Los Angeles. I've lived in Rochester, Minnesota. I've lived in Denver, Colorado. Spent some time overseas. And I was always kind of drawn to the urban kind of bigger city kind of feel of things with everything that I was doing with 303 and everything that I was doing with the various companies I was working for. But a few years ago, I sat back and realized I'd been working at home for, at that time, about 10 years and had been doing very well with it. And it wasn't so necessary for me to have to go into an office. So my wife and I sat down and started talking about what we really wanted from a long-term goal perspective. And we decided that we wanted to be self-sufficient and be able to, as much as possible anyway, and be able to go up and kind of take care of ourselves and think out of the box and be able to come up with new creative ways to get things done. So we created this group on Facebook called Off-Grid Hackers, and it is amazing. I think that right now we have like 600 and something plus people. I'm hoping much more. I hope you guys will join us here. Oh, sorry, 808 people. And it's a lot of the Defcon goons, a lot of the Defcon family and people that are part of this. And it's kind of grown over the last 3 years. But when we first moved in to our house up here, we said that we wanted to find something where, there was already some infrastructure in place, but we wanted it to be something where, we were going to be able to build upon it and kind of grow it. And we got lucky when we first started poking around. We found this ideal property. I got an absolute steal on it. I'm not going to tell you how much it is, but we're at a point now where this is, kind of what it looked like at the start of winter this year. And we've upgraded the solar. You can see there in the background, we have an 80-foot wind turbine, with a Roan tower that we're doing ham radio and some other cool stuff off. We have a point-to-point for 4G communication that fires across the valley to a tower. So we have our own 4G repeater inside of the house. The house is essentially a bunker. So it is almost a foot thick in every direction. That is solid concrete. There is reinforced steel. It is radon mitigated. There is an absolute solid bunker below the house as well. But it's really been our life, and one of the biggest things that we've learned as we've kind of gone into this is that there are a million different things out there that you can think that you're going to be ready for. You can be like, oh, I'm going to move off grid and I've got this figured out and I'm going to haul water or I'm going to do this. And it's like, no. You don't want to do that stuff. It's like we have a 600 foot well. We pull water up. It dumps into a cistern underneath our house. We can hold 1,250 gallons at any given time. All of our gray water and waste goes into a septic tank that is a 2,000 gallon double walled septic tank that has a flow over that then flushes out into what they call a leach field, which are multiple pipes with holes under the ground. And it's this big filtration thing. So we literally take water from the mountain, pass it through our body, and then it filters back in through the mountain. And 600 feet later, we have clean, fresh water again from the Northern Colorado aquifer. So there's a lot of cool things when you move to this lifestyle that are interesting. And I felt like I was pretty good. I understood a lot about electrical engineering and how to do this kind of stuff. And then when I started looking at dealing with, thousands, tens of thousands of volts of DC from some of these solar arrays and these massive battery banks, it was a whole other thing, right? I had to go buy a different multimeter. I had to, figure out how to take care of this stuff. It's an interesting life when people want to come visit you and it's 4.5 miles up a single line dirt road up to your house. For internet, I'm talking to you guys right now over a point-to-point ubiquity setup. I have a shot down a mountain valley, 6.5 miles. I get about 20 meg up, pretty close to 20 meg bidirectionally with that connection. We also have satellite backup. We also have the 4G backup with a hotspot. So a lot of the stuff that we're doing has really been focused on redundancy and making sure that, if something goes down, we've got other ways to do it with power. Not only do we have the wind turbine, we obviously have, 4,000 kilowatt solar. And then we also have a Honda generator that makes it to where if that stuff is failing or we're in the clouds, we can fire up a generator and be able to generate power so that our batteries can charge and then we can live off of our batteries. It's a wonderful life. It's pretty cool not to have bills outside of my mortgage. I don't obviously pay a power bill. I don't pay a water bill. I don't have sewage. I don't have trash removal. But there are things like that you have to think about. Like, every 2 weeks, my wife and I have to bundle up big 50-gallon trash bags of gross stuff that's been sitting in 50-gallon barrels down in the garage. We can't have it outside because we have bears and cougars and bobcats and all kinds of stuff here that'll just absolutely destroy your property if you leave food out. And so we have to take that trash and drive it down off the mountain and take it into the nearest town to then go pay $9 each carload that we bring in to go dump our trash at a public place. So it's different than the urban life, but it's wonderful. When I first moved up here, I was about 220 pounds. Today, I weighed in at about 172, and I'm a hell of a lot more fit. I feel healthier, and I'm happier. And the crazy thing is, even though this is kind of a no-tech speech, I'll tell you that living up here has motivated me in so many ways to do so many cool things. Beyond offgridhackers.com and the Facebook group, we also are hosting a IoT embedded, off-grid CTF coming up here in the future. We were planning on doing it this year, but since we want people to be hands-on, obviously the pandemic's been a pain in the ass. But the idea behind that is to get people together so that they can hack these solar controllers and a lot of these different devices. What you don't or may not realize is that a lot of these controllers that are in your household your household solar charging setups, or some of the controller setups that exist for wind turbines or other types of alternative energy, those are the same controllers and the same chipsets that you'll see in industrial controllers being used at power plants. So if we start finding some of these attacks and some of these PLCs and these other areas, then it becomes very technical very quickly. There's a lot of cool stuff out there that can make it really beneficial. FarmOS is pretty sweet. I'll give big shout outs to that program and to that group of people that have worked on that and put it together. makes it to where you can use Arduino and Raspberry Pi and other types of sensors throughout your land. And you can integrate all this different type of activities. We've also found that IFTTT has been amazing with smart home interaction for being able to do things like monitor the level of our water in our cistern, or being able to, flag an alert when we have motion sensors going off in the front yard, and to turn on, Ring cameras or whatever it is, so that we can see the bear, walking through the driveway. But I love the life. It's not for everybody, but it's been an absolutely amazing mission. I wanted to leave a few minutes for questions, so I'll just kind of open it up. If you guys want to join Off-Grid Hackers, hit up the Facebook group, send a request, and just mention Defcon in the invite, and I'll make sure that I approve you guys tonight. And it's not just my work on there. Again, there's like 800 people posting their projects, and it's crazy deep information about everything from how to make your 12-volt batteries last longer to panning gold. And, somebody will come in and it's a brand new, what was the last thing that we saw? Oh yeah, a massive botnet that was being developed and was being tested, and alpha opportunities were given to people inside the channel to play with this guy's botnet. So there's all kinds of crazy shit that gets posted in there, but definitely check it out. Questions?
Looks like someone has a question. How do you get your food?
My food, I live, I will tell you guys, I am approximately in between Estes Park, Fort Collins, and Loveland, Colorado. Any one of those cities are about 45 minutes away from me. So it's not bad. We drive down about every 2 weeks right now during the pandemic, and we've been observing very, very strict social distancing. And my wife and I will head down and we do curbside pickup, and we usually pick up about 400 to 500 dollars worth of groceries at a time. And there's a lot of snacks and other shit there. It's not like we're being truly self-sufficient or at all, obviously. But we have deep freezes, so we freeze a lot of meats. We cook a lot of stuff in crock pots, where when you make a meal, then you can score it and store 7 to 10 days worth of that food in the deep freeze so that you can go back to it again. But yeah, we go to the store just like everybody else. We also have a pretty impressive garden, and we're growing corn, garlic, potatoes, strawberries, peppers, eggplants, carrots, beets, beans, just about everything. But to truly be self-sufficient with a garden, you're talking more about a closer to like a commercial type operation. Our garden's more of like a little fairy garden where you can kind of walk through it, and it's pretty and sculpted and it's nice. I'll put some post pictures up on the group but it does produce food for us, but not certainly enough to be self-sufficient. Our mountain is covered in deer and turkeys. I do hunt. But funny enough, in the 3 years I've lived here, I've had a couple friends come up and hunt and kill. I have become quite attached to the various animals on my mountain, so I don't really want to hunt them unless I need to do so for meat. But it is also an option. Other questions?
All right, that sounds really cool. Anybody else have any questions that you want to post on the text channel? I can relay that over to Pyro.
And you can also hit up the Facebook group again. Tons of us on there. It's pretty neat when somebody has a problem or a question, about plumbing, about electric, about all kinds of crazy stuff. It'll hit there, and you'll be amazed at the resources and the people that will chatter up that have knowledge and information. I'm getting my ham radio general tomorrow. And I'm just super, super stoked because so many of the people that sit in the room are just like radio pro experts. So they've been kind of a great guiding hand as I've gotten more into the legal side of radio.
Very cool. That's awesome story.
Thank you guys.
All right, thanks. And anybody
Thank
wants
you, Pyro.
to find out more?
All right, and post in the chat, the Facebook group and everything like that. Everyone send an invite, say I know Pyro, you'll get in. And moving on from going off the grid to a comfort of home, we have Digital Resistor, a Defcon party goon that enjoys baking seriously delicious sourdough bread. And I believe he's got a link to drop in here as well for the slides. This is one that I'm excited to hear, so I'll pass it to you.
All right. Yeah, so I've got Twitch up and running, last minute edition, so if it breaks, I apologize. I have also dropped all of my slides as a PDF. So when I get cut off at the 50-minute mark and they kick me out, you can download those and go through them. But let's get started. My goal today is to give you a view of how to make delicious sourdough bread. I see that the Twitch stream is starting to count up, so I might give it one more second. I'll talk a little bit more. We've got some title slides to go through anyway, you know, the usual crap. So the end result that we're going for is this absolutely amazing sourdough bread. It looks delicious, it is delicious, and it is free of any additives. It does not contain any sugar, and is light on the stomach, just because of what sourdough bread is and how it does it. So first things we've got to talk about is yeast. Yeast is everywhere. You are breathing it right now. It is in the air. It's in the flour. It's in it's on your vegetables. It's on your fruits and everything. You cannot get away from it. Although you can try wearing your mask, and that's good for coronavirus too. So it's like a double whammy. So the first things first, we need to create a starter. And the starter is simply a mixture of a 1-to-1 ratio of flour to water, which you mix together. You leave it sitting out on your counter, cover it with a tea towel just to make sure that like no flies can get into it and whatnot. And it will grow. It will literally grow yeast out of thin air with nothing else. So you, after about doing that daily for 10 days, you'll go through the discard half, add 75 grams of flour, 75 grams of water. You will have your very own starter, and you can name them. Mine is named Carl. Someone else pointed out earlier that, you know, was that named after Carl the Fog here in San Francisco? Nope, it just happens to be coincidence. So that was simple, right? So now we have our yeast. We have our starter, and we can go on to the actual bread making. Well, first we've got to make a quick stop. We've got to talk about flours. So not all flour is the same. It's not all made the same. It actually does make a difference what flour you use for your bread. So first of all, don't use bleached flour. The stuff or the all-purpose flour you can get, it generally has been adulterated and or treated, and it works fine for making cakes and things of that nature, but that's not what you want. Nor do you want to use pastry flour. Pastry flour is ground very thin, and it will make a very slack dough that does not actually really give you a dough that you want for bread, and it will leave your bread flat and deflated, and that's not what we're going for. We're going for good gluten content. So use bread flour. There's specialty companies that make it, like King Arthur's. They make absolutely fantastic bread flour. And then whole wheat as well, just because that contains everything that is in the grain. And then last but not least, we've got like rye flour and other types of flours that you can have for flavor. They have very little gluten though, so you can't use them to make a whole bread with it. Well, you can, but it's very difficult to do so. So you can tend to mix in just a little bit of those to give you that flavor without necessarily going full on to 100% of that flour. So what we're going to do is mix and match. As you can see in this picture, or I have here white bread flour, I've got einkorn flour, spelt flour, whole wheat flour. I added in some flax seeds. But you can start simple. If you want, just use only white bread flour and you will have fantastic breads. So let's go already. So we're going to go through these pretty quickly. and I'm hoping that Twitch will keep up and that you get to see them, just so I don't go over my time. So this is what we're going for. This is ultimately the bread that we're going for. And I've been dropping pictures all day into Discord, so I hope I haven't made you all too hungry. We're going to start off with water. We're going to start off with 650 grams of water, in which we're going to put in a giant bowl, just because it's going to get big. Next up, we're going to use our starter, which is a 1-to-1 mixture, which we're going to add in. So I see grams come by on the chat, actually. So let me quickly mention that. We use grams when it comes to baking because it's a very precise science. Using cups or anything that's volumetric means that if your flour is tightly packed or if it's loosely packed, you will actually get different measurements. And that can throw off your bread and make it much more difficult to get it to rise and or to come together. So for this bread, I bought you flowers. I love that picture, Pushpin. So for this bread, this is my selection. As you can see, I mixed and matched. I used 200 grams of einkorn flour. I used 50 grams of the high gluten flour just to give it a little bit of extra protein. 200 grams of spelt flour, 200 grams of whole wheat flour, 50 grams of flaxseed, and 200 grams of white bread flour. So that's a total of 900 grams of flour that's going into the mixture, which already contained 100 grams of flour from the starter. So that's a kilogram of flour in total. And then that compares to the 750 grams of water that's in the mixture because of the 650 grams of water we added in the first place and the 100 grams from the starter, which leaves us with a 75% hydration bread. So we're going to mix this together. We're going to mix this together and create a shaggy dough. And what all that means is that the water is fully absorbed in all the flour. We want to make sure that none of the flour is dry. And at this point, we are going to leave it alone for 90 minutes. We are not going to touch it. We're not going to do anything with it. We're just going to leave it alone and give it a chance to give the yeast time to bulk rise. And this is called the bulk fermentation phase. During this time, we can do other things like make pancakes. It will make the time go by faster. I promise you that. Next up, we got to prepare some salt. We're going to add 20 grams of salt. And salt just changes the flavor a little bit and slows down the fermentation process, because otherwise you may overproof your bread. Next, we add water. 50 grams of water. This just brings up some additional hydration and helps mix it into the existing bread. I also added sunflower seeds because I love adding sunflower seeds for a little bit of extra bulk and also for the oils that it brings with it. Now we're going to knead the dough. Over mixing doesn't matter. Even here at this stage, you want to knead it as much as possible and just make sure it's all integrated. As for the salt, use a salt that does not have any anti-caking agents in it. It doesn't matter if it's sea salt or Himalayan salt. In my case, I used Himalayan salt. So once we've kneaded the dough, we need to leave it alone for 30 minutes. And that means, once again, no touching. During this phase, what happens is the gluten is going to relax a little bit, which you will have felt as you were kneading it that it's going to start fighting you. And I'll answer questions around that a little bit later. So now that we're at the next stage, we've waited our 30 minutes. We take our dough and we fold it. And that basically means folding like an envelope. We start at the top, fold over to the bottom. We start, from the right, fold over to the left, from the bottom to the top, from the left over to the right. And then we pick the whole mass up and we flip it over. So as you can kind of see, you can see the indentations where I had my fingers splayed out to pick up the dough and to flip it over. Now we leave it alone for another 30 minutes. It's just leaving it alone for 30 minutes at a time. And we do it again. So once again, we fold over our dough and we continue to let the gluten develop. And then once again, this is going to get very tiring very quickly, but we're going to leave it alone for another 30 minutes. So this folding process is actually what's helping develop the gluten and strengthen the bonds of the gluten. You will feel over time that as the bread slowly starts rising, that it will start to feel more pillowy. It's going to feel more like it has air inside of it, and that's the air we're trying to capture. And by doing this fold and stretch, as it were, we're developing the gluten, making it stronger, and helping build those lovely cells on the inside that will capture the CO2. Once again, we're leaving it alone after we do the fold and flip. So we do this for a total of 6 times. So it's a lot of time that goes into it, but there's not a lot of work that goes into it. Next, after we've done this 6 times, we prepare for shaping and the long overnight proofing. What I have here is bannetons. Bannetons are just a small wicker basket. You add some flour on the inside of it, and that's what we're going to drop the breads into for their overnight proof. You can fake these if you have some metal bowls. Put a tea towel inside, and then rub flour into the tea towel. So you don't need to buy bannetons for your first time, but they're very cheap, very easy to grab from Amazon. So why do we do an overnight fridge proof? It gives the yeast time to slowly chew up the sugars that are in the flour. This reduces the FODMAPs, which people may be sensitive to. There's a ton of people out there like, oh no, I'm sensitive to gluten, or they don't have celiacs, but they feel they're sensitive to gluten, or when they eat bread, they feel terrible. That is actually related to the FODMAPs and the sugars. The long overnight proof also gives the gluten time to develop itself, and it helps with flavoring. So this will actually introduce a more traditional sourdough tangy flavor, which is what you're kind of going for. So up next, so next we split the bread into 2, so we get it out onto our bench. Pro tip during this time, as you flour your bench, add in a mixture of rice flour as well. So do 50% bread flour, 50% rice flour. This will help it not stick to your bench as much, which will be absolutely fantastic because we're going to shape it. So shaping in this case means that we're going to try to make it into these 2 perfect little round bowls, and kind of just give them the shape of what we want the final loaf to look like. So this step is actually fairly difficult, and it takes some time to figure out how to do that. We shape by first folding it over like we did for the folding when we were developing the gluten. And then we try to rub it against the countertop while doing a twisting motion. I find it hard to describe and explain, so you're just going to have to try it out and figure out how it works for you. Next, we take our bread and we flip it over so that the bottom is actually on top in the banneton. So the bottom was what was laying against the counter, and then on the top of the dough that was sitting on top of the counter will go into the bottom. So that's where we're going to get those nice rings you've probably seen in various different other breads. So now we cover them and heat them into the fridge for their long coverage. And then 14 hours later is when we pull them out. I'm waiting for Twitch to catch up. There we go. So we're going to get a Dutch oven into the oven. I like my large cast iron one, and I highly recommend something that can go up to at least 500 degrees Fahrenheit, unless you don't mind breaking your cast iron, which I have done accidentally. So we're going to preheat to 260 degrees centigrade, 500 degrees Fahrenheit. I've done the pre-conversion to freedom units. You're welcome. So we're going to now flip them out of the banneton onto a piece of parchment paper. The reason that we do this is so that it becomes easier to do the next step, which is score. So to score that, we use a trusty razor blade. We're just going to make deep cuts into the bread dough. And the reason we do that is that when it goes into the oven first, there's this moment called oven spring where all the water wants to escape that's in the bread because of the high temperature, and it has to go through the crust. So by scoring it, we give that crust a chance to escape. We give that hot water and steam a chance to escape so that it can puff up in a direction that we want. All right. So now we're going to pick up and place into the Dutch oven. Yes, with the parchment paper and all, and place the lid onto the Dutch oven, and it goes in for 20 minutes. So 20 minutes later, I'm almost done, I promise. We now pull it out and remove the lid so that we can then caramelize the crust. So this is where the magic happens. As you can see, we've had the oven spring. It's now grown nice and big. You can see where the scoring lines were, and we're going to remove the lid, and then it goes back in the oven, and we're going to reduce the heat, and we're going to bake for another 15 minutes or so. If you go a little longer, you get darker bread. If you go shorter, it gets a little lighter. I picked 17 for these loaves, so this is the end result. It comes out of the oven. Once it does, you can knock on the bottom of it, and if it sounds hollow, that means your bread is fully cooked and done. If it does not sound hollow, you can stick it back in the oven, place the lid back up on top just to make sure it doesn't burn, and just let it cook a little bit longer. So that's it. That's the whole talk. I somehow got it done in just a little over 15 minutes, so I apologize for the next person after me.
Looks delicious.
Yeah, wow, that is incredible. I think you may have inspired Food Village. There's some people talking, and I hope they go with that. And I will sacrifice myself for the calories and judge any contest in that village.
Me too. Just sign me up to be a judge.
That's it. All right, our next speaker, previously in martial arts, a teacher, sales, barista, SRE, DevOps, SecOps, InfoSec, privacy, Australian with an American passport. Most of his adult life in Japan, a big fan of cyberpunk, Keanu Reeves, and feeling smart. I bring you Daruma. Probably killed that pronunciation, so I apologize.
Hello, Daruma. Can you hear us? Can you speak? That's the question.
It looks like he's muted.
Here.
Yeah, let's unmute him.
Yeah, let me do that.
Already tried. Should be good.
All right. And now all you have to do is unclick that little thing by your mic.
Unclick the thing. Okay, stand by. I'm trying to unclick the thing.
That sounds like an Australian.
Oh, hey, am I heard?
You are
Yes, we can
heard,
hear
my
you.
friend.
Oh, God, I am so sorry for everyone in this call. You came for things, and you get me instead, but here we are. So yeah, you hear me okay? You're sure? You're really sure?
Loud and clear.
Wow, that is just not something I'm used to anymore. I'm not used to being heard by anyone because, we're all stuck inside and such. Hey, so yeah, that's a thing I do. Apparently I'm Australian. Apparently I have an American passport. I like a lot of things. They literally just read my bio from end to end. And by the way, mad props to all of you for doing that. You actually read something, which is unlike all of my end users. You already are a step or two ahead of literally thousands of people. So thank you for that. And also, just a word to the person in front of me, making the bread and being all like tasty and shit. I love you and I hate you at the same time because now I want bread, and it's 3:34 a.m. In Holland where I live right now, and I'm not going to make bread at 3:34 a.m. So
Ik ben ook Nederlands, dus je kan gewoon brood maken hoor.
ja. Oh, Nederlands Spectre, ja?
Ja. Sorry, I had to say he can make bread because I'm Dutch. Sorry, I'll let you talk.
Oh my God! Someone speaks Dutch. That's going to make me even more awkward. Because what I'm here to talk about is actually imposter syndrome, and oddly enough, Dutch speakers are part of that equation. So you're part of the story. So congratulations. No, jokes aside. So what I've done up till now, and maybe just a quick background on my psyche, just because I have a captive audience, and why not speak into the void when given the opportunity? So I come from a position of high anxiety and a very, very, very real sense of insecurity. I'm told this means that I have a imposter syndrome. Now, what that means in practice is that basically everything you think you do, everything you think you are, is a position of someone else knows more than you, and that you are in some way faking all these things that you've done up till now, that you're somehow not accountable to the knowledge that you gained, that you're to the information that you're responsible for. And to the point, that's very, very, very fucking true. So I'm going to take you on a journey, for, if I may, until about 3:45 a.m. Central European time. So follow me, if you will. So what's going on right now? So at this time, I am an information security officer for an unnamed mid-sized company in Europe. I am uncomfortable in that role. I am an engineer, theoretically, except I haven't been an engineer for years. While I was an engineer, while I was an infrastructure, specifically, an infrastructure security operations engineer, a role I developed for myself. In that role, I developed for myself in the company I'm currently in. I still felt like I was faking it the whole time because I came into it from a strictly non-security position, strictly like security that's not the word. That's system reliability engineer, I think. So yeah. Anyway, like an infrastructure engineer role. So while I was in an infrastructure engineer role, I still felt like I was faking it, like I was insufficient. And weird, and I'm just going to spoil the ending for literally everyone in this call. It's all true. It's all true. I was insufficient for all those roles, including my current one. It's a weird, specific position to be in. It's basically failing upwards. And let me go all the way back to a certain point, like right around the time of the financial crisis. That's where I got into technology formally as a career path. That was time. Oh, what's that? What's that? Everything okay?
Yep, we can still hear you.
Yeah. Oh, okay, cool. Okay. Yeah, feel free to interrupt me because I don't know anything, and that's kind of why I'm talking. That's actually why I was invited to be here, is because I know literally nothing, and I'm really good at it. So the short version is that basically, at no point have I known enough to do the job I do. At no point have I felt sufficient in the role I currently hold. I have always been in the shadows of people above me and beyond me, and literally right next to me, which is even worse. It's a very odd and uncomfortable position to have a position where you are responsible for maintaining an architecture or an infrastructure, and you don't know how to do that. Like, you can run a script, you can look at something and figure things out, but someone next to you does it twice as fast, 3 times as fast. They do it with half as much code. That's uncomfortable. And then when there comes a certain point where, like, you know what? I don't know what I'm doing. You have to actually ask yourself that question. And then it's even awkward when you ask your employer, I don't know what I'm doing. And then they ask you, why are you here? Well, that's a really good question. Well, it's because I really love this stuff, and I know what I'm, and I really am fascinated with how this works, and I really care about how it ends up. And that's when you start to realize, and this is, again, we got 6 minutes left in my particular time slot, so buckle up. This is where it gets good. Stop caring. Stop caring at all. Stop thinking about what people expect of you, even if they actually have literal key performance indicators. Stop caring about them. Think about what you want the job to be, and think about what you're trying to accomplish in that job, even if you're massively unqualified for it, as I currently am for my current role. Spoiler alert. So what it comes down to, I ask awkward questions because I don't know what I'm asking. It's weird, but it works. Let me give you an example. So someone from the business intelligence group wants access to literally all data within this company, right? And I ask them, why do you need that? No one has asked them that question before. Literally, no one has done that because they just assume that that's what they do. But because I don't know what I'm doing, because I don't understand the context in which I find my role, I ask this awkward question. Why do you need this? They've never had to justify that answer before. So now they have to actually justify that answer. And they actually have to have a reason for that. And if I don't like that answer, well, weirdly enough, because I have failed upwards in a very specific trajectory, I can tell them, like, I don't understand your answer. And I'm an idiot. I don't know what I'm talking about, and I don't know what you're talking about. Well, if I don't know what you're talking about, then how can you explain it to everyone around you? How can you justify this to people who write your checks? If I don't understand, how can anyone understand? I'm the idiot here. I'm the one who was promoted into this role without a clear understanding of what its expectations were, and you're trying to tell me how this works, and I don't get it? The average person should know more than me. So they have to suddenly have to justify their answers for the first time. And that's not the only example. It has been a pattern my entire career. I am a professional idiot. It is a weird position to be in, a professional idiot. Maybe some of you can relate. I hope some of you can relate, because I really feel lonely in this particular space. But be that as it may, there's a certain reality that comes with that lack of expectation, or at least lack of understanding. You feel like you don't understand. And you're right, you don't. You're an idiot, like me. Like me, you also do not understand why a certain practice or a certain workflow or a certain process is done a certain way. And we are necessary. Those idiots, us few, who have failed in an upward trajectory in a very specific way, we're the ones who challenge things. Now, I come from a background in sales. Long time ago. I've got 2 minutes. Long time ago. And in that time, I remember reading a story about a guy named Jeff Lear. Now, if the last name sounds familiar, he created Lear jets. He had not finished high school, if I understand this right. Now, someone's going to fact check me. Please do. I'm wrong. Like I said, I'm an idiot. But be that as it may, he created a company with a specific understanding that he had no direct knowledge of how to build an airplane. But he wanted to make one that was small enough and portable enough for people to just fly them in a jet-like fashion without actually being a full-size, like, passenger jet. Like, you could fly, like, less than 10 people or something to that effect. Again, someone fact-check me. I'm an idiot. But one idiot created Lear jets because no one told him no one could convince this idiot that his understanding of aeronautics, of avionics, was completely wrong. Turns out he was right. Turns out the basic principles of miniaturizing a large-scale DC-10 worked well enough to be a viable product for the consumer market. And that's the end of my sales knowledge, because I was actually really bad at that too. The short version is that at a certain point, you become an idiot. At a certain point, you are promoted out of your space. You are identified as a person who is knowledgeable, who is reliable in a certain space. And maybe you're not fully confident in that knowledge. But you know what? Amongst that idiocy that we all feel, there's a certain grain of understanding. And that understanding educates your poorly educated understanding of a situation. I have no minutes left, so I'm gonna wrap this up. The short version is that even if you don't know a full comprehension of a situation, even if you're relied upon to do a thing, and you don't have all the understanding of the thing, it gets worse and it gets better. You know so little that you can ask the right questions. Asking the right questions in the wrong way is better than the right questions is better than the opposite way around. I've had a little bit of rum. It's 3:45 a.m. Central European time, so I've probably had a few drinks by now. But the short version is that if you don't know what you're talking about, keep going. There's probably some truth in what you're trying to emulate, what you're trying to express. And asking the wrong questions at the right time is something that even the intelligent, well-placed people will not probably do the right way. That said, it is 3:46 a.m. Central European time. I've been told that I have 15 minutes, and my 15 minutes are more or less up thanks to the bread guy. So I'm going to relinquish my time. And here we are.
Thank you very much. Yeah, imposter syndrome is real. I remember a good friend telling me, when I felt imposter syndrome, shut up, you're my friend. That's all you need for validation. So, all right.
It's a really good response to imposter syndrome.
Yeah, it is. All right, moving on. We have our next speaker. I am not a robot. Bleep, bloop. And this one feels very close to home. I feel like a lot of us could possibly be giving this speech. So I'm going to pass it on over. This is going to be a good story, folks. If we unmute them. I am not a robot. Beep boop. I am not a robot.
Should be unmuted.
Yeah. No, just got to unmute yourself. It's okay, Lost couldn't do it yesterday.
Iruma, if you can mute your mic, please.
All right. I'm not a robot. I think you are unmuted. Can you speak and see if we can hear you?
There you are.
Alrighty. So yeah, that's I guess I read once you should start with a hook to interest your audience. But the end of the story is how I almost got kicked out of college for I got sued $25,000. But it's a longer story to get there. So I grew up with like really new agey parents who were very strict, and I didn't get internet till I was 14, and that was like the same year they decided to put me in college. So I've been in college for quite a while. It was an interesting getting in early. Wouldn't recommend it for everybody, but I was homeschooled until then. It was real weird. But I'd done a little bit of like social engineering, and everybody hear me?
Yeah.
You're
Alrighty. So sorry about that. I hope you guys can hear me better. So I had I'd done like little social engineering, a little like urban exploration. When I got into college, I was pretty arrogant and thought, I could do whatever I wanted. How do I turn up the volume on my mic? Try and do that.
And while he's adjusting the volume of your mic, just check if you're not speaking that you're on mute. No.
All right. Volume should be all the way up. I'll just try to talk louder, I guess.
Perfect.
Alrighty. So when I got to college, I thought, world was my oyster, and it kind of was because they just didn't lock anything, and I could go anywhere, I could do anything. It was the best. There was I convinced like the chief of police on campus to give me an interview, and when she wasn't looking, I stole her mug, and I still have it. I was really proud of that for some reason. But then by my senior year, still nothing had happened, and I got even more arrogant. So, and I'd also become an RA. So I was an RA for like this huge dorm. It was like 11 stories tall, ton of kids, and I really wanted to get on the roof. I couldn't pick locks at the time. There was no easy way to bypass it. So I decided I'd just copy the master key. That was the easiest thing I could do. But they had a pretty good system in place, so I couldn't do that very easily without them knowing who had it at all times. So I had to wait for there's 2 times a year before Thanksgiving, Christmas break, and spring break. They would give us a master key for the full day to like check in on people's rooms, make sure everyone was out. And during that time, I took a mold of it um, and put it in a box and forgot about it. When I got back from Christmas break, a maintenance worker had gone into my room, and what they found a lot of very suspicious things. I had credit card readers and writers, which was actually for a legitimate school project, but very suspicious. And so they decided it would be appropriate to have the police search my room, and they found all the stuff, like master keys. So they reacted probably appropriately. They had me removed from the building. They fired me. They changed all the locks in the building, which was a great expense. And when they fired me, they told me this cost us, I think it was almost $40,000 to change all the locks in that building. And they were going to charge me $25,000 for, compensation. And I was like, I was screwed. I didn't have that kind of money. My parents weren't going to help me out. So, and even if I wasn't kicked out, I couldn't register for classes unless I paid the fine. So I was like, what am I going to do? I was like, my life's over. I'm not going to have a career no matter what happens. So I had to wait until my meeting. I had to meet with the student conduct, and they found I didn't say I'm not very smart. I'm somewhat clever and very lucky. What happened was they found asbestos in their office. They had to move across campus in the process. Somebody made a mistake. They lost a lot of data in their system, and I just kind of disappeared, and they forgot about me. I had 1 semester left, so I just tried to remain ignorable, and they forgot about me. And so far, haven't heard anything, so I think I'm in the clear. But you never know. it could, it, it could come up again. But yeah, that was a huge scare for me, and luckily I didn't learn better. I just learned to get better, and I kept doing that. Tried to make a career out of it. But yeah, that's my whole story. If there's any questions, hey, I'm huge into like urban exploration, stuff like that. If anybody has any questions or something they want me to talk about on that, I got a few more minutes.
Dude, that's awesome. You are the single person that is going to say asbestos. It's magical.
Yep.
That's awesome. All right. Well, we appreciate your time today. Thank you very much. Our next speaker is my brother from another mother, He's a Sakun. He likes the morning shift. I don't know why, but we all can't be lazy like me. Please, everyone, welcome Nothingness.
Hey, thanks, Noobs. How's it? Is this thing working? Yes, I'll take it as a yes.
Yep.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Cool. So I'll try to rush this through because I got a lot to cover. But thank you for having me. So this talk is called "Hacking the Sabbath and Keeping It Holy." It's holy with HOLEY. First off, no tech talk, right? So this is not about hacking computers. It's got a little bit of theology and culture in it. A lot of it's about rules of community. I'm not here to debate religion with you. These are a lot of my own experiences from my culture, and maybe somebody else could relate in the crowd too. So let's just kind of get started. My goals right now are to inspire you, right? To question everything, to challenge authority. What were these rules that you were set out to live by according to your community and those around you? And so it happens that in my community, I have a set of rules that I'm supposed to live by. And so some of the basic ideas is that, like, especially stuff like Judeo-Christian or what we call Abrahamic religions, we have a Sabbath, this magical day, right? And so they say God rested on the seventh day. Again, we're still reading out of a book here. So, but the question is well, what does rest mean, right? And it's very quick to assume, well, rest means not to work. And there's actually a lot more that goes into this. So real quickly, rest is actually defined by 39 rules, and there's actually 613 commandments, not 10. And again, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole. We're just kind of setting the groundwork here. But the four main categories is what I call bread stuffs, which is cooking and plants, garment stuffs, which is clothing and mending, hides stuffs like animals, and construction stuffs, where we'll focus. That's like buildings and fire. More specifically, ignition is used often to cite the use of electricity on Saturday. And just to kind of go, let people know where we're going with this, you've probably heard that Orthodox religions, especially in Judaism, aren't allowed to use electricity on Saturday. And what that has done is that has built an entire industry of invention around using electricity on Saturday. Like doing the thing you were told you're not supposed to do, but never actually breaking the written rule, or in stone, as we say. So to get to exactly what they mean by electricity and fire, let's think about stuff like electromechanical switches, right? So a switch on a wall or some kind of thing, it may throw a spark. Well, is a spark fire, right? And so a lot of this is up in the air and it's questionable because it's intentionally because it's vague. That gives us the opportunity to discern or question how exactly it's meant to be done. So there's a whole aspect on, is a spark considered fire? And scientists will actually say, no, a spark is not considered fire. Therefore, setting a fire is one of the rules that you're not supposed to break. Therefore, setting a spark is not breaking a rule. But then again, science also calls it completing a circuit. Therefore, you're not supposed to build something. And building is absolutely work on the Sabbath. So we're not supposed to complete a circuit either. And that's kind of the premise of to why you're not supposed to use electricity. Like that's really basically it. It's you can't use electricity on the Sabbath because you're not supposed to do work, and building something or completing a project is work, and starting a fire is work. And that's what we're bound by. But in this industry of invention, suddenly we've gotten really clever in modern times, right? We're not 5,000 years ago anymore when some of these ideas were put on, I don't know, paper or whatever they had. So the idea is, how do we bypass these rules without breaking them, right? How do we respect that Sabbath? How do we keep kosher without, going against the rules of your community and your elders and those that look, upon you, or even if you feel this is something that's deep down inside. So I'm just going to kind of talk about some of the ways that we break them or bypass them, right? So let's talk about food. One of the rules is that you can't start a fire or cook things from scratch. So why don't you just use a crock pot and leave it on low? So you cook it before and then you leave it on, and then suddenly you can keep your food warm. So you're not using an oven or a microwave, but you now magically have hot or warm food when you want it during the Sabbath without touching a single thing. Other thing too is that you can open and close a fridge, but you got to be really clever and disable that light that lights up when you open the fridge door. So if you just unscrew it, everything's good to go. You didn't turn on a light on accident or on intentionally, right? Let's talk about temperature within your house. Thermostats are a great example of bypassing using electricity for the fact that it's pre-programmed. You are not actually triggering anything. The thermostat's still going to run its course regardless. I mean, technically, yes, your presence makes a room warmer, but for the most part, you're not going up to a thermostat and turning it on or turning it off. And it's the same thing for timers for lamps, right? So a timer socket is a great example of bypassing that rule of turning on or turning off a light. Like, you weren't the one that did it. It's going to run its course already. There's a whole nother like deep end of this where if you do something to directly influence an electrical action, like that was on you. So you can imply. So like, let's say you have a neighbor who is not the same faith as you. You can say like, man, it's really hot in this room. I wish somebody would just, do something about it. And then you say like, wink, wink, and you don't tell them to open the window to change the temperature in the room. But if they figure that, man, it is also hot in here, maybe I'll do this on my own will. You can get other people to do things for you and to operate electrical devices by implying the use of something without directly asking for it. And that's a really clever social hack to get these things completed. And you'd be surprised. So most appliances in your kitchen today have what's called a Sabbath mode built into it. Every major manufacturer, GE, LG, Samsung, Whirlpool, so all the big companies, if you look in the documentation or even on YouTube, often they'll post up videos about how to do a Sabbath mode. It allows you to override a lot of safety things. So one of them is kind of taking us back to that crock pot idea. You can actually leave your oven on for more than its automatic shutoff limit. So I think like almost 24 hours. So to keep food warm in the oven, normally there's a safety feature that will actually shut off the heating after a certain amount of time. Because that's very dangerous, but you can bypass that. Same for fridges. If you have like one of those keypads, oftentimes you can disable the internal light ahead of time so that on the Sabbath mode, when you open the door, it doesn't turn on the light inside. And so by utilizing a lot of our modern technologies, we're already finding ways to use those wonderful electrical appliances and devices within our house without breaking any of the rules. We are not, we are keeping kosher this whole time. And so, it's really interesting the fact that it's not just people trying to find ways to do this within their own culture. Massive international corporations are now jumping on board to help with the shenanigans of finding loopholes and abusing them to allow people to feel good about what they're doing and that they are still, keeping strong to those rules written for them. So, let's get to something really interesting here is that there's a way to use a cell phone on the Sabbath. So there's always like exceptions to the rules. And the number one exception, I guess it applies to everything in the world, is that an emergency is always the exception, right? It's the same reason that if you turn on your lights, if you're a cop car, you can blow through a red, right? It's an emergency. All the rules don't matter. So basically, you can have a cell phone if you need it to save a life. So security guards, police officers, people that are protecting the prime minister of Israel, for instance, you can have a cell phone on you and you can use it to communicate, especially if that's what's going to keep you or somebody safe, right? And there's a really interesting rule that says that for instance, you can't start a fire, nor can you put out a fire. But like if your neighbor's house is on fire, like you can totally put that fire out. You can break that rule because there is life at stake. So this opened up kind of a can of worms to, okay, well then I can always carry a cell phone on me. And what if like my wife calls or my husband calls or my significant other calls or my kids call and it's an emergency? Like I don't know until I answer, but the potential is there. So suddenly that allows people to carry a cell phone, and they're what these calls kosher phones. It's really interesting, but it has no internet. It can only do phone calls, and that's what allows you to like be in that connected mode without actually being connected. So again, more bypasses, just trying to find ways of reading into the rules and finding those loopholes. Now, one of the most common ones that most people probably see is elevators. If you've ever lived in New York or Miami or been overseas to Israel, we have what's called a Sabbath elevator. And so screw stairs, right? Because we don't want to do that. I would rather wait in an elevator, and it will basically stop at every single floor automatically on the way up for a period of time. And so you kind of just hop on, like you just hop in the elevator and you just wait patiently. And then like ding, 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 you get to like floor 5 and then you just pop out. And so like the laser is actually disabled because that triggers a circuit and that causes like electrical things to happen. So you have to move quickly, but the door is like extra slow. But so like one of the elevators in an elevator bank will be assigned as like the Shabbat elevator or the Sabbath elevator. And that's the one you ride, and it goes all, every floor on the way up, but then it like expresses from the top down. And it just does this the entire time during the duration from Friday night to Saturday night. And oftentimes people will put like a chair in the elevator because it takes so long, and like elderly people want to just like sit down and rest. And so there's like stuff like that. And then there's the concept of building things. So there's this big like story about, and yes, I'll get to that comment in a second, about building a train in Israel, and like you can't work on Saturdays, right? And like that's just the premise because that's what the religion and the culture says. But like all it takes is one person to be like, man, it could save a life. So like, there was somebody who decided to approve building a train on the weekends to speed up the process. And any construction project is always like behind schedule and over budget. But to help with that a little bit, it was decided that building a train between two major cities had the potential of transporting somebody to the hospital quicker for an emergency. So it's like, all right, well then I guess we'll just let the construction crew work over, this period of time. And it's like, it's just like thinking about how to be clever without breaking anything and not pissing off too many people. And so as we're rounding this out, like I've just gave a couple of really interesting examples of inventions in technology. There was a great post in the text chat about the kosher switch, which I'm not even really good at explaining how it works, but it's like a multi-stage switch where when you flip the switch, a series of other things happen or may not happen. Therefore, you're indirectly responsible for that light turning on. They have a great YouTube video that you can watch. It'll explain it a lot better than I can. Again, the people invent stuff to work around a set of rules. Like I feel like it takes a lot of effort to find loopholes in this, but it's really fun, and you're hacking the system and you're hacking the culture, right? And I've been talking about my culture, like the Jewish culture, for a long time, but we're not the only ones with silly, weird rules, right? Other cultures have interesting loopholes too. In fact, people have probably heard of the Amish, right? In their buggies, right? They don't drive cars; they ride a horse and buggy. Is really something that they do. But did you know that Amish actually are allowed to ride in a car or ride on buses, right? They're just, as long as they're not the ones driving. The other thing too is Amish people love using the phone, right? But they don't have a phone in their house. They build a phone in a small little phone booth outhouse thing all the way on the edge of their property, like where the city line, like is the city takes over from the street, or they put it on a neighbor's property that's not Amish, and they just walk over there and use it. And the whole idea is that electricity is not just part of what they do. And if you're going to use a phone, like you have to make it in such a distance that it's an inconvenient distance. So like they have cell phones and laptops and like all kinds of really cool stuff, as long as it's not within their house, because that is bad. But if it's not on their property, then it's fine, right? And so Amish have been, finding loopholes in their writings and their culture for a long time too. And there's a lot that we can, learn from the way that they're approaching things just as much. And so really that kind of rounds out my talk. I wanted to kind of, inspire everybody, right? Find vague rules, create creative solutions, question everything always. Read and review and read and read and read and review some more. And I was approached by an attorney after kind of going over some of this stuff once, and they told me, be like, lawyers, because that's all they do all day is find loopholes in paperwork and find loopholes in policy and abuse the living heck out of that. So go home, figure out what rules you're abiding by, and find ways to bend them but never break them. Thank you. This is my talk.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you coming. I think everyone here does as well. It was excellent. Everyone F's for that talk. All right. Our next one is a cybersecurity student, an IT support specialist, but more important, hoorah, 1, 2, 3, 4. I love the Marine Corps veteran, Edgar Allan Crew. Everybody, welcome. Edgar, can you, not can you hear us, but can you speak? Attempting to sort out the audio issue. That's okay. Yep, I hear something.
Edgar, it's push to talk, man.
We should make Discord part of the mystery challenge. 100%.
Can you try speaking, Edgar? I think you should be unmuted now.
I don't think he realizes that it's push to talk right now.
Did he jump out of the channel? Oh, he's back. Yay! And there's no mute.
Can you guys hear me?
Now
yes, we can hear you.
All right. Is the audio all right?
Yep, we can hear you. Rock and roll.
Make sure I had to switch over to my phone because for some reason I'm having trouble mounting my headset. I unmounted and it won't. I don't know. It won't come back. Anyways, how does this work? I just get going.
Yeah.
Yep. Go right ahead and tell your story.
So so guys, tonight the story that I'm going to tell you is called Layer 8 DDoS, or how at my first Defcon I created a human botnet. So I had a little bit of trouble finding a place where I fit in the Defcon Discord. By chance, ended up finding VetCon channel, where the vets just kind of come together somehow, just with all the different things that we have in common. And so I spent some time talking to the guys, and we ended up in a video chat together, having a good time, having fun and drinking and stuff like that. And believe it or not, we actually had 2 video calls going on that were like vying for supremacy to be the video call for the channel. So we kind of had a little bit of a war going on, and I may or may not have instigated it. So while we're in the chat, I started reacting to the other chat's post with the Fed emote. And as a joke, you see streamers all the time. If you guys are enjoying the stream, go ahead and smash that subscribe button. So I decided to give it my own little spin. If you're enjoying this call, go ahead and smash that Fed button. So eventually we stopped arguing and we came together into a pretty large group. We're still drinking, we're having a fun time. We're talking about different things in the community. And we decided to have a little bit of fun up in the LineCon channel when it was still there, day one. So we started reacting to things with the Fed button. And then it went from reacting to things with the Fed button to continuously smashing a single Fed button to see what would happen. And unfortunately, people started having issues with not only reactions, but I think their client was being affected because they couldn't accept friend requests or send DMs or accept them. So it got kind of crazy. And then at one point, we were actually using the thanks command in our own channel, the VetCon text, to spam a couple goons. It was fun, everybody got a laugh out of it. And eventually we all just kind of, well, I say we all went our separate ways, but I got a little too drunk and had to get offline. So that was Thursday, and then Friday or yesterday, it all happened again. We had our talks throughout the day in the text chat, and at one point we decided that we would go ahead and hop on the Zoom again. I do have to mention though that morning when we did get access to the chat channel again, somebody had removed our ability to add reactions to messages. It was a little disappointing, because that's one of the most fun things about Discord is being able to react to those messages that you see sliding. Eventually a goon came in and did give us that permission. So, but once we're on the Zoom call again, we're we're all spouting off military stories and stuff like that, and we're drinking. Of course we're drinking. We're always drinking. We're veterans. So I probably had about a quarter of a bottle of bourbon before I decided to get a little crazy. We decided we would go up to the lobby bar and start messing with people. Nothing harmful. We'll give people some rep and see what happens. So we actually started spamming one. How we picked it was I hopped in the chat, saw the last goon that sent a message, and we decided we're just going to go ahead and start spamming them with the thanks command. Well, another goon, and I'm not going to name anybody, said that our flood was weak. Slow mode workaround.exe. So what we did was we assigned everyone a number in the countdown. 4 people for 2, 4 people for 4, 4 people for 6, 4 people for 8, and so on. And as we were spamming, we had 2, 4, 6, 8, and eventually what we originally thought happened was we thought that we had broken the bot because the bot stopped responding to the thanks command. Turns out that one of the moderators just happened to have turned it off. So, a little bummed about that knowledge, but it is what it is. So, eventually, a flock of goons shows up and starts issuing mutes, and one of our users even got hit with a ban hammer, so we had to negotiate his release. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it. It's crazy to me that we were able to do that. Nobody was harmed in the making of this story. I hope, but good time. A lot of goons got some cool rep, and yeah, that's it. I do have to say, don't do it. It's pretty high vis. There are certain people specifically watching for people to do what we did. But yeah, that's it, guys. Short.
Yay,
Nice.
shenanigans.
So first Defcon, are you gonna come back to Defcon next year?
Absolutely, as long as I don't do anything that's gonna get me banned in between now and when the convention's over. So, but anything can happen, I guess. Oh, okay. So no, I'm sorry. Whiskey Hacker brought up a good point. I did mess up. So at one point when we were doing the doing all of the spamming, we had a user who had path hijacked the Dark Tangent. They had actually made their name the Dank Tangent because their name alphabetically was first in the list. People that were trying to ping him were actually pinging our user. So fortunately, they've also hit the Discord with a fix for that particular issue. So unfortunately, we won't be able to do that anymore.
That's funny. All right. Thank you very much for sharing your stories. We appreciate it.
Glad I could make some people laugh.
It was definitely that's funny. All right, our next speaker is a DFIR, dumpster diver, lover of logs, reporter, artificier, and general benevolent contractor. Has some degrees, but would rather talk about weird stuff she finds on cell phones or reconstructing RDP sessions. Caretaker of 3 cats, fiddle player, and a fan of potatoes in all forms. So what would you expect someone like that to tell you about?
Hi,
Snail
Taffin.
tales.
Hi, Bert. Hey, VetCon. Stop it.
Well, take it away.
It might get taken away if you continue, so don't. Anyway.
Bring on the snails. Woo!
Why can't I do video in here?
Oh, we have too many people for video. You can throw something in the chat.
Sorry, I'm taking up someone's talk time, and I'm gonna shut up now.
No, it's okay. We're moving on a little quick today, so ready when you are.
Fidget, you shouldn't have talked. You've confused poor noobs.
I know. Now I'm all confused.
Litmoose
Sorry,
is.
sorry.
Where's my snails?
It had to be said. I'm gonna drop now though, and oh yes, I'm not Moose. For anyone who's curious, I just had to yell at VetCon because they're fucking it up. Don't fuck it up, and have fun. It's mandatory. I love you. Bye.
Yeah, that was cool.
Okay, that was not Moose. So, Moose, are you with us right now?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
This is why I came with two devices. Sorry, I thought that like people were confused as to who was talking, so I was just like, oh shit, that's not me. No, I'm here to talk about snail sex. So I don't know who the other person was. I'm so sorry, and I'm sorry to be like, hey, it's not me. Yeah, I have come to tell you about my adventures in snail farming and snail sex. And the reason that happened is a long and slippery slope, but it's called quarantine and not living in a countryside and wanting to have self-sustaining foods. So all of this started when I decided to start testing food out on my other half, and I ordered some canned snails from Amazon because I like escargot, and I found that they were wholly disappointing. And so I thought, well, there's got to be a better way. And I started drunkenly talking about this with a few friends, including Pinguino. And if you all know Pinguino, she runs Beerphone with a couple of other people and is one of the most supportive people you can ever meet in your life. And she told me, I have a friend who kidnapped some snails and bred them and then ate them. And I was like, oh my God, that's a great idea. So slippery slope. Then I went down the research of, okay, what do you need to do to keep snails? Well, you got to get a tank. So anybody who is following along this story, by the way, I posted on Twitter some visual aids. So if you go to @litmoose, you can see that's my tank setup. So I looked, okay, so I need clay balls to put in the bottom so that it doesn't get too moist. And then I need substrate. And then I need like some living moss and a couple of plants. And like it turned into this big adventure of like creating this vivarium for these snails that I was going to eat. There's echo now. Hold on.
Mute your mics if you guys aren't talking, please.
Can you hear me now? Okay, sweet. So I went and I researched and it became this financial investment, and my other half's joking around with me the whole time. He's like, you're just going to have pet snails. And I said, no, I'm not going to have pet snails. And so my goal was you get the tank and you create this nice little habitat for them to where they like it enough to where they want to get it on, right? And then Pinguino's suggestion of, you can just like eat street snails, right? And I was like, you're kidding me. That's what I can do. So in LA, it's very dry, and I was in LA at the time. And somebody told me, and I don't remember who it was. It might have been Tacitus. So under the bus, Tacitus, who said, "You're not going to find any snails in LA. It's a desert." And I was like, "Watch me." So here I am, bored as hell during the pandemic. And I go outside at night with my little flashlight after like it's like dew point, and I start shining it around to find snails. And I was very disappointed for a little bit because all I found was slugs. And I was like, I can't eat you for whatever reason. I probably could, but I don't want to. So I have to find something with a shell because that's what society tells me I need to eat. I keep looking. And I finally find these snails in a neighborhood, and I became a snail kidnapper. I put these things in a Tupperware, and I carry them home, and I put them in their new home. I start talking to them, and I say, I need you to make me babies. So these snails I wasn't going to eat until I had bursts, because how are you doing snail farming right if you just eat what you find? Unless you're making more. So I'm thinking of it from like a business perspective. Also, I'm hungry. I'm not going to eat just 4 snails and escargot. Like I have the little dish. So like the dish has 8 spots in it. I need at least 8 snails. So I needed them to get like hurry up with it. Well, then I learned snails don't really like having sex in unclean environments, and they're kind of picky, and they need the right volume of soil and blah, blah, blah. So I was like, well, what else can I get? And it got recommended on a couple of online forums that that I get isopods, and isopods are roly-polies. Depending on where you're coming from, like they're pill bugs elsewhere, but they're the little cute bugs that roll up when they get scared. And apparently those are great janitors. So it delighted me to no end to research different places, I shit you not, that sell roly-polies online. And they ship them to your door, and they're super cute. And those are pets, by the way, because I'm in love with them. And they clean up my snails tank. And so I was like, okay, good. I finally have happy snails. So how does this work? So I started looking up snail sex, which I've probably been flagged by like whatever Fed is watching me as like super weird now. Like this girl's not into anything normal. She's into snail porn. Definitely not the case. I just want escargot, guys. So I'm looking this up, and if you did not know, snails are hermaphroditic. So that means they have both reproductive parts. And they seek each other out when there's enough moisture in the tank. So then I got the spray bottle, right? And I was like, okay, well, we're going to replicate rain, and I need you guys to make me babies. So I'm like Jewish momming them over here with like the fake rain, and like I'm spraying them, and I'm like, please make me babies. And I was like, well, there's got to be more to it. So like, what else do they do? Apparently, snails feel each other. Like they do everything by taste and like feeling around. So like touch and taste. And so they take their little dealy bobbers and they find each other and they poke each other. And then apparently they can spend hours like just tasting each other. So if that's your kink, like you might be snail. Like they're the pet for you. Good job. But I was like, okay, so I just have to watch and see if one starts liking the other and they think they're delicious. And who decides who is male or female? And I did more reading, and apparently they tussle a little and they shoot each other with what the science community has lovingly termed love darts. No, they stab each other and inject sperm. And apparently, if they do it wrong, it's been known for one snail to kill another snail during this process, which sounded wholly unpleasant. But I'm also from Florida, so who's to judge, right? So, I mean, this is in the headlines there at least once a week. But yeah, I found out that, you know, snail sex is super violent and super unpredictable. They have to think that it's rained. You can definitely be successful in making your own escargot by being crazy and buying a tank and creating this nice little vivarium and kidnapping snails and then like talking lovingly to them. But unfortunately, mine haven't made me babies yet because we moved halfway across. Well, we didn't move halfway. We moved all the way across the country from LA to New York, and I think it upset them a little. Also, the cats have been like loafing on top of their tank, like smelling them, and I think it's stressing them out. So now I'm finding them a new place in our place to make them happy, and I'm gonna start experimenting with like maybe playing some Barry White, putting on some smooth jazz, and I hope to add to the snail research community in snail sex studies, and hopefully by the end of the year I will have delicious snail babies to eat. And that's my talk. So that is how I've hacked the quarantine in my boredom. Is I am now a snail farmer.
I think I speak for all of us when I have to say that is amazing, and please submit that talk to next year for the main stage.
100%, I would be happy to.
Yeah, we want pictures and video, because just talking and the pictures on Twitter do not do this justice.
I mean, if you guys want me to start a snail porn channel, that's all you had to say.
You want to watch snail sex?
You don't?
I won't kink shame you.
All right, fine.
About snail
All right,
sex.
fine.
Yes?
If David Attenborough narrates it, I'll watch anything.
You don't kink shame in this community.
So I
got someone in my place with a Brooklyn accent. Thank you for that.
I think you could start an OnlyFans for snails, and I think you would get a ton of subscribers.
If there's a YouTube channel for a guy that does ant farms, you can easily get 1 million followers.
Do you guys know Bugs in Cyberspace, the YouTube and Instagram channel? He also sells specimens that are good for and non-invasive as personal pets.
I will be subscribing now.
Hey, Moose, we have a little bit of time left, so do you want to talk about your other story, which is less snaily?
No, not quite yet, because I see we have Smoochie in the house about making limoncello, and I'm kind of very, very interested in that. Smoochie, are you ready to tell us?
Yes, sir. So a little bit of a feedback. So, yeah, my story is short and sweet, just like a shot of limoncello. So I was lucky enough to be sent around the world on a job that allowed me to stay 2 weeks in different countries. One of my little stints was in Italy. And for those that have not been to Italy, there are aperitifs that they give you after meals called cellos. So there's like a limoncello that's made with lemons, meloncello, orangecello, but it's always given after the meal. And being on travel, I was going out to restaurants for dinner every night. So I got used to going to this one that was by my hotel, and guy would come out, give me a little shot of limoncello, tell him, hey, this is really awesome. Can I get another one? The guy says, sure, leave him a little bit bigger tip, gives me another one. Go back the next day, gives me 2 shots of limoncello after dinner, and I give him a little bigger chip. And this progresses for the 2 weeks to where, I go in, I leave a 20 euro tip before even starting. He just brings me a bottle of limoncello, and then I sit there with some of my coworkers. We finish dinner, we drink, we just have a great time, and I'm just in heaven. I'm a huge fan of drinking tasty beverages, and I just got hooked on it. So when I came back home, I was telling everybody about my travels, and they were asking, hey, what's one thing you love the most? I said, hey, limoncello, because after every meal, it's like this sugary, alcoholic, just fantastic, awesome thing, and you got a nice little buzz, and you sleep like a champion. So I went to a local store around here, picked up a couple bottles of limoncello because I had no idea like what brands were what and what tasted like whatever. And every single one of them tasted like gasoline with artificial lemon soap in it. It was disgusting. And I put them in the freezer. I took them out, put them at room temperature. Nothing fit the bill. So I ended up doing some research online, finding this restaurant that was out of Amalfi Coast, which is where they have the lemons. And it was this older lady. She had made this little blog. She said, "This is what I do for my restaurant." And being American, all of those metric numbers just didn't mean anything to me. So had to convert all those with some maths and figure out what worked for us. And ultimately settled on, I was going to take some vodka. I was going to take some confectionery sugar because that's what we had. And I'm just going to go get some lemons from the tree that's right down the street. Made all that, cut the rinds off the lemon, soaked it in the vodka, made a simple syrup out of confectionery sugar. It tasted like shit. So I figured out, okay, well, let's adjust the variable a little bit. So maybe not confectionery sugar, I'll just do cane sugar. Did it again, tasted like garbage. Did a little bit more research, figured out, okay, cool. Need regular cane sugar. I need not regular lemons, not Meyer lemons, and steep it for about a week and a half. Cool, tastes great. As I go through it, the sugar is a little bit too much. I get accustomed to it. Not a big fan. Do a little bit more research, and I ultimately narrowed down a recipe that I think just is a perfect punch. So I'll throw that out in the chat. But basically, what you have to do is and this is what works for me. You guys figure out what works for you. Find a lemon tree in your neighborhood that doesn't cost anything. Because at the store, it's like 99 cents a lemon. This shit can get expensive. So find a free lemon tree, not a Meyer lemon tree. You need about 8 lemons, and you're going to get a potato peeler, and you're going to go on the outside and just get the thinnest of the rind that you can with none of the pit. So the pith is the white stuff on the inside, and it's actually very bitter, and it'll screw up your limoncello. So very light on the outside, and then you're going to steep those rinds in Everclear or some other grain alcohol. Vodka just doesn't have enough punch. It doesn't seem to be pulling out enough oil from the lemon rinds to actually bring that lemon flavor over. Once you let it sit for about a week at a minimum, I've gone for like 3 to 4 to 5 weeks. I haven't really seen a difference between 3 to 5 weeks, but 1 to 3, there's a significant enough taste. Let it sit somewhere dark. On the day before you're feeling like bottling it, go ahead and take 1.5 cups of sugar, 2.5 cups of water, boil the water, and then put in the sugar, stir it up, let it cool to room temperature, and then mix it with your Everclear. One thing that I don't have on the recipe that I just noticed, it's 1 liter of Everclear. So 1 liter of Everclear, 8 lemons, 2.5 cups of water, and 1.5 cups of sugar. Mix all that together, and you will have some of the tastiest limoncello, and you can gladly go around telling your neighbors that you are a lemon stealing whore that makes the tastiest limoncello. And that is my fireside chat.
Awesome. Thank you, Smoochie. Thank you. Well, I've got a little hack, but with Rona, it's kind of gonna kill that one a little bit. But so we were going to the Miami Dolphins game because I'm a Dolphins fan, and I guess I like to be beaten somehow. So me and my dad, we pre-party, we are pretty hammered, and we go to find our seats. We get there, and there's 2 gentlemen sitting there. I'm like, all right, guys, move along. Get out of our seats. These guys stand up and pull out ticket stubs, and they say, we've got these seats. And I just kind of look at them. At this point, like security's starting to come up, and they're like, can we help you, sir? I'm like, no, go away. I want to talk to these guys. Hold up one second. The scam was shared with me, and it's brilliant. yet for some reason I'm still a Miami Dolphins season ticket holder. But it's 2020, and that could be the year the Marlins are in first place. So if you've ever tried to sell your tickets on Ticketmaster or StubHub and they don't get bought, it may not happen to you, but it happens to me all the time as a Dolphins season ticket holder. An hour before they get released back to you. Some people go to the game, try to sell them. Sometimes my dad's like, yeah, they're totally going to get sold. I'm like, they're totally not going to get sold. And they totally don't get sold. But what these guys do is an hour before, they go in their car and they print up Ticketmaster stubs of all these people who are selling their tickets with an hour to go before the show. They buy like a $5 bleacher seat ticket and they get in there. And they just go from place to place. I'm like, holy crap, that's the most brilliant thing ever. They're like, hey, you want to go to a skybox? I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, no, I was just showing my buddy down here on the field. You guys want to go party in a skybox? I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, we got 16 passes. I'm like, holy shit, let's go. So we went up to the skybox and we drank and all that. It was an amazing experience. But yeah, that's what they're able to do. It's their version of badge flashing. I think it's pretty neat. And yeah, those guys have been to all the concerts, all the sporting events and everything like that. Yeah. Meanwhile, I go and watch my team lose a lot. Except my team's winning in baseball, so we have that. So that's a little bit of an analog hack on how to improve your concert going or sports going experience. I start by going to see a real team. Awesome. I believe that coming up at the top of the hour, we have the hardware hacking contest. Does anyone have that link? Throw that there in the chat. That's going to be on Twitch. Everyone, refill your drink, go for a bio break, get a little snack, and then we will meet you guys all over at that channel. But we'll still mess around in the text. Yeah.
No one's
Great.
talking.
So, that?
Yeah, I said there was a pause there, so I figured I'd say hi. I was going to offer if any of y'all wanted some tips about making Vegas more fun.
Yes,
Sure.
please.
Yeah, sure.
Go right ahead.
Within the confines of the law, please.
Absolutely. Hold on, let me push to talk real quick.
So you make
push to
Vegas,
talk. You were there.
Vegas is super fun when you disappear.
I'm waiting for these
at
Vegas
regular
kicks.
Defcon too.
But noobs, I
Can't
gotta
leave
come
us hanging like this.
I want to come to a football game with you so that we can go sit in skybox seats on somebody else's. Because I mean, that's brilliant to buy the cheapest ticket possible and then print out a paper ticket for whatever Photoshop section you want.
I was absolutely amazed with these guys, and like security's coming over. I'm like, guys, go the fuck away. I'm cool. Like, I want to talk to these guys for a little bit. It was just fantastic. It blew my mind, and then the pandemic happened, which kind of killed going out and all that. But once that all starts up, that scam is starting shortly.
I'm on board.
All right. Sorry, I guess push to talk is the only option. Hello, welcome. And first thing I want to advise, always make extra time coming here, especially in the summer. It's hot, everybody's running hot. Everything you think about time is wrong unless you're actually, well versed in the flow of everything around here. But there are some definite additives. The Atomic Testing Museum, it's amazing. It's on Tropicana. I'd recommend 2 to 3 hours. If you like museums, this one's full of real information. Also, right next to that is the Pinball Hall of Fame. That's really cheap and lots of fun. Bring cash so that you can turn that into coinage. With that, also, just don't be afraid of leaving the strip. The strip is literally designed Vortex to get as much money out of everybody who goes there. When giving directions to people, use your full hand. It's a standard practice here. Instead of using a finger, use your whole palm. Your message will translate way faster. If you want to go places that are like, you can't go to this one section until you've like got 2 drinks in you on tap. One of the workarounds of that is they're pretty open to letting you move around if you're like, oh, can I go have a cigarette? Like the Stratosphere. You can get to the top of the Stratosphere for free without going to the nightclub if you just say, I want to go have a cigarette real quick. Yeah, no, they're like food. One of the best ways to have amazing food and save a lot of money is literally look off the strip. Even a buck can save a ton of money, eat various worldly treasures, lots of fun things.
Huzzah, man! I wish we were all in Vegas now. I miss y'all.
Well, I will be sure to put video on one of the channels so you guys can see the rooftop deck I'm on.
Where will you be after this? Because we have too many people on the channel now to do video.
Later on, probably like an hour or so, I was gonna see about like setting up Minecraft for like 10 people to jump in the arcade. So maybe
Maybe when?
maybe an hour from now I'll be over there, and I'll be happy to show off views, no problem. I've been in pool 1 and 2 early in the morning for sunrise, around 5 a.m. the last 3 days.
Nice.
That
Very
is
nice.
too damn early.
Not if you're on the East Coast, but yeah, it still is early there.
It's 5 a.m. It's here.
Yeah, I got 5.
I need this as common as possible, so I need you guys to retain this information. If anyone's overheating or cold, the area that's between the back of your neck and between your shoulder blades is the thinnest point tissue-wise to your temperature control zone. So if anybody's ever overheating or freezing, you thermally control that area.
That's
Yeah,
a good tip.
Yeah, that's a fantastic tip. When I learned that, like that was a game changer.
In the summer here, it's advised that you just pour some water on the back of your shoulder blades or the back of your head, and it'll help you cool down in minutes instead of an hour and a half just doing water.
Hell yeah. All right, my fellow deviants and degenerates. I believe we have run our course. Appreciate you guys for coming. You could have been anywhere else in the world, but you're here with that, and we appreciate you. At the top of the hour, we have a hardware homebrew contest, and it's going to be an excellent one. So thank you guys.
There's also a fireside chat happening right now with EFF. So if you would like to ask the EFF questions, please do so by entering into the fireside lounge text.
EFF is amazing.
Pool 3 voice is empty. I'm going to take myself and video over there of the sunset right now.
Right.
Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you, team, for organizing this.
This has been awesome. Thank you, guys.
Welcome. It's been entertaining.
Thank you, everyone who shared.
Cheers.
It just goes to show you don't need a computer to hack stuff.
The Heat Trio.